exciting. That I think you will be really pleased to hear her speak. And then, so I want her to tell her story. And then we have about 7 o'clock-ish, we're going to have a Q&A section, so you can ask her all the questions, that you have. So thank you, Manju. This is yours.
Hi, everyone. How are y'all?
Great.
I'm Manju, Bangalore. Thank you for inviting me to speak. I'm super excited, and I'm really glad my parents are here. Thank you for birthing me and all of that. I appreciate it. Thank you for inviting me. If I speak too fast, please just wave at me. I'm young, and I feel like the world is ending, so I speak a lot to get it all out before it does. So just let me know. When Rebecca sent me the email, the first sentence said she wanted me to speak about inspiring greater things in 2019, which, since it's y'all's first quarter meeting, I thought that was fitting to bring that in. But it got me thinking to what does inspire me, what does inspire all of us or motivate us, and I'm not quite sure what inspires us as a human race. I don't know about human psychology that much, but I can talk about my story and what inspires me and motivates me, and hopefully that will plant a little seed of motivation and inspiration for your night or week. So I am a scientist. I'm a physicist. I graduated from U of O with my Bachelor's of Science in Physics and a minor in Math last June, at the age of 20. And I was really excited with that degree. I didn't think that was going to happen for a lot of reasons. But I also wasn't expecting to do that, because that's not always what I wanted to do. When I was 4 years old, I learned about a woman named Kalpana Chawla. Does anyone know who she is? That's okay. That's okay. So when I was 4 years old, I learned about her, and she was the first Indian woman in space. And I didn't know why I resonated with her. I had no idea, because I didn't know the word representation at all, but I just saw someone who looked like me from my cultural background doing this incredible thing of going to space. And no matter what your political belief is or your affiliation is, everyone can look up at the stars and be in awe of it. And that was me. And so for a few years, I was really excited about her. I would watch her TV interviews, all of that. And then 2003, 2004, the Columbia disaster happened, and she was one of the crew members that died upon re-entry. So as a 7-year-old, that was really terrible news that you could die, because I wasn't there yet. And so I especially didn't know you could die in space, and being an aspiring astronaut at the age of 5, that was just brand new news. And so I switched my goal to something much easier, which was pediatrician, because I was like, I'm a kid, I know how to talk to kids, so it's going to be super easy to help treat them, right? That's how doctors work. And I was kind of set on that for a little bit. I was good at math when I was younger, but then when I got into middle school, it started getting really rough, because it was really repetitive. It was just y equals mx plus b, y equals mx plus b, and that's not how my brain works. And so I started getting B's and C's, and I was like, math isn't for me, because clearly all of these boys are really good at it, and most of these girls seem pretty good at it, and I'm not, so I'm just not going to worry about it. And then I got into 9th grade, and that was when I was in Crescent Valley, and my first day I was in Mr. Buchanan's class. And if any of you guys have had kids go through CV, you either know that people love him or hate him. I was one of those kids that didn't know what was going to happen, because I didn't have a strong affinity for math then. And then he kind of changed my world the first day of honors geometry, when he said he wanted us to erase all of the math knowledge in our head, and he was going to reteach all of it to us. That was new, because I didn't know you could do that in one class. And so he started defining a point and then a line and then went on, and by the middle of that term, I was proving the Pythagorean theorem. So it was this full 180 that he did for me, because he reached me in a different teaching method that none of my other teachers had. And so that kept going, but I was still really into history, and more than I was in any other subject. And then my junior year, I was in health too, because that was the elective that fit that period, and my best friend wasn't. And so as a 14, 15-year-old, I was disappointed that I didn't have friends in that class, so I asked my best friend what she was taking 5th period, and she was taking physics. So I was like, well, you have to come here, I have to go there. And she's like, well, I'm not going there. I was like, I guess I'm going to take physics. So that's what I ended up doing, which is not like a super inspirational story, but it was because my friend was in that class. And I had no idea what physics was. I thought physicists built bridges, and that's all they did. And then he started playing videos of like, we could calculate the speed of balls dropping, and like also space had to do with physics. And I was like, oh yeah, space. Like I remember how much I love that. I just didn't know we could do stuff like this. And it opened up this whole world, but I still was not good at it. It was hard for me to do physics. I wasn't good at it. It seemed like the class was going way faster than I could function. And I ended up taking AP Physics that next year, but I got an F, Mom, so. So I didn't do that great, and so I was like, this isn't for me. So when I got into college at U of O, my objective was pre-law, and I went in as a political science major. And then about a week or two into school, my parents' friend sat me down just to chat at the house, and he was like, what are you studying? And I told them political science, because I had this bug for politics since I was young. I remember even on our Franklin, DC trip, shout out to Franklin, there's like 40 of us a year, we went to DC, and when we were at the observation deck, I was the little like 11-year-old that was like, oh, that's that senator and that's that senator, and all these adults were like, how do you know more about these senators and representatives than we do? And I didn't know this at the time, but I also realized that I didn't have the privilege growing up of ignoring politics, right? As like a child of immigrants, I knew about the visa, not that my parents went through the visa, but I knew about the green card process. I knew about H-1B visas because of our family friends. As a brown kid, you felt racism even if you didn't have those words, right? And as a girl, I dealt with sexism, so all these concepts weren't foreign to me, and I didn't have the privilege to ignore politics. So that bug has been in me since I was very little. Also because I've always seen politics as a tool to change for the better, even if that's not necessarily how it's been being used at that moment. That's what its tool is, right? That's what government's supposed to do, is to help. So that was my purpose, and that's what I told him. And he said, that's great, but higher education is also a privilege. And you can choose to go political science and get this education, but you can also recognize that a lot of this political science you could be learning working on campaigns, writing policy, reading policy, all of these things. But things like quantum physics, for example, those are harder to like pick up a library book and start teaching yourself on, right? So he said that I should be thoughtful about how I chose my major, because this was an experience and I need to be taking advantage of the classroom and the teachers. And that kind of struck a chord with me. And so that fall, I ended up actually switching my major to physics my freshman year. And now I'm just going to give a bit of a content warning, which I should have done at the beginning. I do mention sexual assault in this talk, so if at any moment you need to get up and leave, please feel free to do so, because that is more important. But my freshman year of college was extremely difficult. I didn't feel like I fit in college. U of O doesn't have like high diversity, so I wasn't getting a lot of like positive reinforcements that way. Physics classes were hard because I was consistently the only woman that I saw. We have, I think U of O might have 2 right now, but when I graduated we had 1 female faculty out of 35. So there were a lot of reasons that I was struggling, and my mental health was also struggling. And then fall freshman year, I was sexually assaulted at SAE at Oregon State University. This is the first time I've talked about it publicly, so sorry if I tear up. I spent 15 minutes in that frat. That's the only frat house I've ever stepped into. And I learned actually through a couple of my friends that SAE jokingly is referred to, its real title is Sigma Alpha Epsilon, but it's also jokingly referred to as sexual assault expected, because it's so frequently a home for sexual assault. So that deteriorated my mental health very quickly, and I wasn't able to complete my fall term at U of O. But when I came back January, thankfully my professors were very open to, they didn't know my circumstance, but they were just very open to me growing and learning throughout college. So when I entered back in January, I was much more grounded, and I actually, in the beginning of February, and this is going to get even weirder, I had a really bad period, and it was like really painful. Sorry, I'm going to make everyone uncomfortable. That's the point of my existence, so here we are. I did that for comic relief, so you felt like you could laugh. So I had a really heavy period, and I was actually complaining about it to my mom, and then I stopped because it was pouring rain outside, and Oregon has a huge unaddressed homelessness issue that we need to be working on, and we aren't, and so it kind of clicked all in my head. And the first question I had was, how do homeless people get their period products? Because I'm complaining a lot for a person that has a roof over their head, ibuprofen in their stomach, and Netflix on right now. And I Googled it, and this was in the beginning of 2015, and it turned out that there were very few homeless shelters that were getting period products because we don't talk about periods enough to think about donating them. We think about socks and toothpaste, but we aren't thinking about pads and tampons because we're too uncomfortable to talk about the uterine lining shedding every month. And so I started looking at it a bit, but there wasn't that much. And then later that week, there was a woman in front of me who couldn't afford her period products. And all of a sudden, it was like this real thing in front of me. So I was also there to buy pads. So I was like, let me just grab, I'll get it for you too, girl. And so we were good there, but I realized that we could be addressing this on a larger scale. So February of 2015, with a few guys from my dorm floor actually, I started a nonprofit called Operation Period. And we are a youth-led menstrual health nonprofit that does advocacy, education, and services, both in the US and in India. But we are like Oregon-based. You can check. We are registered in Oregon. And we largely thrive because of our Oregonian community. And through that, I was able to ground myself with a lot of the trauma that I had because it was like a way of pouring myself back into my community. Because I'm, like a lot of people in this room, refuse to let those things keep me down. And so I'll get more into the nonprofit a bit later, but we are still going strong. Next 2 weeks from now will be our 4-year anniversary of our inception. And to date, I think we've given over 150,000 menstrual products out, and we're all volunteers. And a lot of us are students, and a lot of us also have jobs. So it's difficult, but all of you guys are also volunteers, so you know the struggle. Let me scroll here. So after I started doing that, I also, I think that was around the time that another shutdown was happening, if you guys are familiar with government shutdown. And I read some posts that said that NASA was closed. And I was like, wait, NASA's still open? Like, I forgot about them. Because the shuttle program had ended in 2011. And I started looking up NASA, and they were doing all these cool projects. And then I was like, I wonder if they have young people there, because that would be pretty cool to do. And it was as easy as Googling NASA internships, and I ended up applying to like 15 in 1 week. And by May, I had heard back from 0 and been rejected from all 15. And then mid-May, I got an email from the internship coordinator, and she said, I know you got none of them, but I read your application, and it's really powerful, and I'd like to set you up with an internship at NASA Marshall Space Flight Center. So it took this person that did not know me, did not know anything about me, only knew that I had 0 research experience and a few physics classes to take a leap of faith. So I did my first NASA internship. I was 17 and I had 10 weeks at NASA to work on propulsion, and I knew nothing about propulsion, but I did it. So it was good. It was just very difficult because it was an aerospace engineering internship, and I know physics and aerospace engineering might sound really like similar, but if you talk to an aerospace engineer and a physicist, we will argue about how we're different than each other. So it was very different, but it actually set the track for what my research is today, which is still propulsion and how to get us to Mars. So it was this 10-week leap of faith that is still affecting me today. And then when I got back to the University of Oregon, I got the Presidential Undergraduate Research Scholarship, which was just a very fancy way to say that I got 9 months in a lab, which is another fancy way to say I got nowhere with my experiment in 9 months and learned that failure happens way more than success, specifically in science, and it's really hard and often disappointing. So that was a lesson that was has been reaffirmed many times in my life, but it was very obvious then because I had a set amount of time to get something done, and I didn't do it. And then that next year, for the summer of 2016, I had applied to probably like another 30 applications One of them being the White House, to work on science policy, because I was trying to bring together my politics experience and this science background to work on things like climate change, which if we don't solve in the next, or if we don't start addressing in the next 12 years, will wipe humanity out. So it was this important problem, and it seemed like the administration at the time, the Obama administration, was working to fix this problem and other problems like it. So I applied for the summer of 2016, and I did not get it. And then I applied for fall of 2016, which were the last 4 months you could work or intern at the White House under the Obama administration, and I didn't get it. So I went on a road trip to LA, and then my first night in LA, I got an email from the White House asking me if I could do a phone interview the next morning. And that is not something you say no to. So I drove back up to Oregon that night, and the next day, I felt like I needed to be home and like in my room to do this interview for some reason. And I went to, I did the interview, and within a week and a half, I was in DC starting my job at the White House. So the last 4 months of the Obama administration, I was the president's final National Science Technology Council intern. I worked this council, I don't know the state of it now, to be quite honest, but the council under the Obama administration had 5 committees and over 100 subcommittees and interagency working groups. So it was federal government workers from all these different agencies like NASA, EPA, all the way to CIA, whoever, working on these different issues like soil science, because our soil is eroding, and if we don't stop it in the next 100 years, the US will have no food, by the way. That's a short plug about soil erosion. To space science, to everything in between, STEM education, how do we get more women in STEM, all these different working groups. And so every day was completely different. I had no idea what I would work on. And I was there election night. I was there working with people I both agreed with and didn't agree with. And often I was working till 1 a.m., 2 a.m. And as an unpaid intern, that was, it was still, like I was still so grateful to be there, because those types of experiences are literally once in a lifetime. And it was a very unique internship because no one treated you like an intern, like quote unquote intern that grabs coffee. I was sending emails and people would be responding because, as I did, people respond to the White House when you get an email or phone call from them. And I also got some of my favorite people on this planet there, because we were all like-minded in the sense that we were there to improve the country that we loved so much. And that's what bound us together, and that's also what was motivating, because for me, at least, election night did not go the way I wanted it to. And the fact that I was there working with these people, I knew that they were still going to be doing this good work outside of the White House, even if it wasn't within those 4 walls. Also, when I was at the White House, I started bugging the space policy advisor, who I was not working for. I knew we would get along because we both like space. And so I started bugging him to start going to any of his unclassified meetings, which he allowed me to, and I was very grateful for it. And through him, I started meeting some other space folks in DC, one of them being an astronaut, Mike LA. And I ended up grabbing lunch with him one day. And he was very skeptical, to say the least, because I was this 19-year-old running around DC saying she wanted to be an astronaut before she turned 30, which you can understand why you'd be skeptical about that type of person. And he sat with me for about an hour, and by the end of it, I was in shock, because he said, I didn't think I was going to say this when I came in, but I think you have a very good shot at becoming an astronaut. And that's like when he softened. And so it was a different relationship between us now. It felt like a mentor-mentee relationship. And so he asked me who had inspired me to become an astronaut. So I told him about Kalpana Chawla, and then he says, "Do you know who Sunny is?" I said, "No, I don't know who Sunny is," because I didn't know a lot of the astronauts' nicknames. And he said, "She's my spacewalking buddy. I think she'd really like to hear about your nonprofit." And it clicked in me that he meant Sunny is in Sunita Williams, who is the only Indian woman currently in the astronaut corps right now, and who I've watched her videos, I think, since I was 10. She's actually, there are pictures of her up in the Evergreen Aviation Museum as well. But I was like, yeah, I would love to talk to Sunny. Sounds good. So a month after I left the White House, I was on the phone with her talking about my nonprofit operation period, which was formerly called Rosie at the time. Then 5 months later, I had applied to probably another 45 more internships because I clearly have nothing better to do. And I had heard back from again 0, and they were all rejections. So at this point in my college career, over those 3.5 years, I think I had applied to over 150 applications, and I had gotten 2 yeses. So I was a little dismayed at the time, and my advisor said, "Didn't you talk to like one of your role models 5 months ago? You should give her a call." I said, "Yeah, I don't know why I should be calling her more often, right?" And so I emailed her and was like, "Do you need an unpaid intern to like manage your schedule, like anything you need, or work on a spacecraft, but just anything?" She ended up forwarding my resume to someone else in the astronaut office, Lee Morin, who has an MD, I think 2 PhDs, and also is an astronaut. And he's in charge of the rapid prototyping lab. And that lab is in charge of building the cockpit displays for the new spacecraft NASA is building called Orion. That will eventually go to the moon and later, hopefully to Mars. And so I ended up interviewing with them, and I got the internship. It was the hardest interview of my life, but I ended up getting the job, and I worked 9 months 9 months total, 3 rotations at Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, in the astronaut office. That job was also very difficult because I had never worked on an actual spacecraft before, but I got to build some of the displays, like the camera display. I know nothing about photography or cameras either, so that was a fun experience, as well as some of the emergency displays and do some of the technical documentation for them, because it turns out each of the displays requires like a 100-page manual, which if you build the display, if you have the fun, you also get to do the writing. So I got to do that as well. And then when I was planning on going to grad school this year, but I took a gap year. And so since I got back from Johnson Space Center, I've tried to maintain my political activism as well. Last year, because for me, a lot of the issues that I work on, like menstrual equity or STEM education, they are really important, but one of the issues that's always been at the forefront of my mind is gun violence prevention, because you can work on climate change or you can work on menstrual equity, but if you're in fear of getting gunned down at your grocery store or your movie theater, that's a lot harder to work on, right? So when March for Our Lives happened, I was in Houston, and I was one of the 3 lead student organizers that organized the march, and Houston's was 5th largest in the country, and March for Our Lives, by the way, is still the largest youth-led demonstration in global history. So I met incredible people through there. I spoke at Houston's Women's March, and even locally, Lee and I did protests at the courthouse when the Kavanaugh nomination was going. So I've tried to maintain my activism during my gap year. And then I also got the opportunity, because I didn't really know what my gap year was going to look like. I'm still figuring that out. So if you want help, I'm here. If you have scholarship money, I'm also here. But this past fall, I got to manage Sammy's campaign for Benton County Commissioner, and that was a really cool process because I had never worked on a campaign. This was the second campaign I had worked on, and the first in a leadership role. So that brought together a lot of the things, a lot of the organizational skills, a lot of the activism skills, and even some of my STEM skills in terms of being technical about your strategy and stuff like that. Now I am back at NASA, kind of. I haven't started yet because it keeps getting pushed out because of the shutdown, but I'm there, and I'm going to start working on guidance, navigation, and control for a few of the spacecrafts being built right now, one of them being Orion. And I'm really excited for NASA to reopen. I'm really excited for the entire government to reopen. But it's been hard right now. Even like I'm on my friend's couch right now. We're trying to figure out, because she's also a NASA engineer, and we're trying to figure out how to make ends meet right now. And oftentimes when I do speeches like this, I kind of have like jaws drop or other things, because people are confused why I'm doing so many different things that don't look like they tie together. And for me, it's not necessarily about doing a lot of things, it's about doing things that matter to me. And oftentimes, some of the things I do, I don't really have a choice. Like, I feel like I need to be doing political activism. I feel like I don't have that choice when I feel like my rights are being infringed on. And I feel like I have a need to do space stuff because I've been too in love with it for too long to ignore it. And I feel like I need to do this menstrual equity work because if 60% of girls in Kenya or 20% of girls in India aren't finishing high school because they don't have a pad, that's a human rights crisis to me, and that needs to be addressed. And if no one else is going to do it, then it's going to be me. And I think oftentimes in applications, a lot of my advisors and mentors are confused about why I'm doing this, and they tell me often I am scattered and I look scattered, and that may be the case. But I also think, is that me? No.
You have a phone right there?
Mm-hmm.
You have a phone?
Yeah. But yeah, I often get told I'm scattered, but I keep thinking back to like the greatest minds that we think of from the past, these polymaths that were so diverse in their skill sets, people like Da Vinci or other folks, and they are often so strong in their art or their field of work because they have done so much outside of it. And I think this is really important when we even are talking about solving global problems, right? Climate change, a lot of the general public didn't believe that a lot of it was man-made until we had politicians and science communicators come on board with these scientists to help translate the data into effective messaging. So when we have all these people come from different walks of life, we are stronger and we create better solutions. And I think it's important to have that diverse skill set at the table, but I think we can all individually bring it as well. So that's also what kind of motivates me. And I don't have like a neat ending to this because I want to take questions, and that's what I enjoy doing at these talks. But thank you for letting me speak, and I'm excited to answer questions. The question was, when do I have time to study? I took a lot of my classes. So, for example, when I was at the White House, I had to take quantum, and I needed it to keep going in my class and not be a full year behind. So my teacher handed me the textbook before I left and was like, you can scan your homework assignments every week and read the book and watch YouTube videos, and then the midterms will be worth 0 and your final will be worth 60% when you get back. And so that's what I had to do for that class. My senior year, I had to take electromagnetism to get through my coursework and graduate in 4 years. And the faculty member that was in charge of this class was Dr. Majewski, who is the only female faculty member in the physics department. And she actually, freshman year, she pulls all of the female physics students and takes them out to dinner and goes, physics is hard, science is hard, you're gonna fail, you're not dumber than the boys, you just need to work as hard. And you need to keep working hard and you can't give up. And so you end up liking her quite a bit, like the first time you meet her, because there are very few people who will take that time to do that. And so she was in charge of my electromagnetism class, and she said that what I did for quantum would not work for her. And so she said I had to Skype in every class. But the classroom that electromagnetism had been held in for decades did not have Skype capabilities. So she moved 50 students into a different building, a different floor, so that I could Skype in 3 times a week from NASA at 1 p.m. Central and do homework questions with everyone. So oftentimes when I'm standing at this podium, it looks like it's me and maybe my parents, but there is literally an army of people who allow me to do this work. And I hope that I'm a part of a lot of other people's armies that allow them to do their work. But I did struggle with studying, yes.
What do you want to do in grad school?
Right now, my goal is to do a master's in engineering. And my field of research is propulsion, specifically nuclear electric propulsion. Right now, with our traditional systems, the estimates to get to Mars are 9 to 12 months each way, which means we have to spend at least a year on Mars to make the 2-year commute worth it. But there's other emerging technologies that are more advanced and newer, and one of them is nuclear electric. And there's an engine being built by a company in Houston, and the company's led by a former astronaut. And if you take that engine, theoretically, and pair it with a 10 megawatt nuclear reactor, which is not like super high in power compared to what we have with the Navy, we pair that and put that in space, we could get to Mars potentially in 39 days, which saves a lot, right? Like radiation issues, out the window. Toilet paper storage, out the window, because you don't need nearly as much for 39 days. So a lot of these issues go out the window when the commute is shorter. So that's what I'm interested in. Yeah, I heard about that at dinner. I think I'm definitely, $7,500 doesn't sound terrible, so I will definitely be looking into that. Yes.
I can't ask you any science questions because that just goes over my head. But as far as Operation Period, are there other organizations that you team up with, both here or in India, and what are the opportunities to help you with your mission?
Yeah. Did everyone hear the question? Yeah, the question was just about my nonprofit and who we partner with and how you can get involved. Operation Period, right now we partner with several organizations, for example, Planned Parenthood of Southwest Oregon, excuse me. We partner with an international nonprofit called World's Children, and that's actually what enables us to do our work in India. Some of you guys might be familiar with them because they were headquartered in Corvallis until a
And
couple.
they had a Zonta member for a while.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah, that makes sense. We partner with them to do our work in India. Right now, to get involved, there are a bunch of opportunities. For one, April 6th is our annual gala and silent auction, and that will be in Eugene. I can forward the details to Rebecca, maybe if people are interested in buying tickets. That would be one great way to support, but we also are always looking for volunteers for different events or to distribute pads. And also if you know like other students who are interested in starting chapters around Oregon or around the US, send them to our website or to me and we can connect and get them help to start a chapter.
Have you made any contact with the Zonta Club of Eugene?
I think we have, and also with Rotary in Eugene. Yeah.
So, maybe not quite as exciting, but what do you do for recreation or just for fun or to relax from home?
I like to be on, so I didn't really talk about my arts a lot, but I write a lot. I do spoken word, and I have a play that I wrote right now that's being produced in Eugene at the end of next month. And so writing helps me decompress because that's just a good outlet for me. And then dancing, but I haven't gotten to do that in a while. So this year I'm just trying to get through 50 books. That is my goal. So if you have any book suggestions, I'm also all ears.
You also mentioned about the pageant. Tell us about that.
So the question was about pageants because that's in my bio. I get some stares or some like questioning faces when I say I do pageants because a lot of people see them as like counter to feminism and all of that, and I'm happy to answer that question if that comes up or if that is a question of yours. But I do pageants, and last year I placed top 10 in Miss World America, and the year before that I placed top 10 in Miss Oregon USA. And my plans are to do Miss Oregon USA again in the near future, but I just got to fit that in with grad school because my grad school is in England, so it might be hard to do Oregon from England.
Where in England?
At Cambridge, working on their master's in engineering. I'm sure there are more questions.
We're exhausted.
You know that Oregon State has about, I don't know, at least 25% of the faculty in physics are women.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I heard several.
I still won't say go Beavers, but I do appreciate that.
They've been very helpful. Women in engineering.
Yeah. They also have a minor in aerospace engineering, so they have like rocket clubs or rocket teams as well, which is very cool.
Manju, you should talk about your play, what you do.
I talked about it. Mom.
So what is your the goal for 2019? So any particular?
The 50 books, definitely. Less political mayhem. I'm not sure what else. Competing in Miss Oregon USA again. And then just trying to keep finding community organizers and builders to help the world and the communities that I love.
going all over the place at this, is there a contact person for Operation Period? That's, because I don't know, is there one at Oregon State?
We don't have a chapter at Oregon State. We have a chapter at Crescent Valley. They just had a movie screening with Padman, I think. Or they have one this Friday, so if you want to go to CB for that this Friday. But I'm not on staff. I'm one of the board members now. But Lizzie Elkins is our current executive director, and so she would be the person to get in contact with. Her email is lizzie@operationperiod.org, but I can also include contact information and website information to Rebecca to forward. Yeah.
I have a thought if you want to take a road trip over to Boise. Have you met Barbara Morgan?
No, I have not.
Okay, you know who she is. She was an astronaut.
Oh, okay.
A school teacher that got to go ride and go to the moon, right? I'm trying to remember like the specifics.
She might have been shuttle because we haven't had a woman
She
go
was
to the
shuttle.
moon yet. Yeah.
And so she's hanging out at Boise State,
Oh, wow.
working with them on to create national STEM curriculum, primarily for women and young girls, and to talk about that your vision should be is going to the moon. Like, don't be short of that. But you would be a perfect person for her to meet.
Yeah.
And you never know where that might go, because I think you guys would be a really good connection.
Yeah, I would love to connect with her.
Yeah, and I could connect you through Boise State with her.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you'd be fabulous.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Any more questions? We still got a few more minutes. You can also just come find me at the table. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Manju, for a great, topic today. So I hope our members today will take away with, this young girl, only 21 years old, and she done so much. And when I compare